for 5 minutes.
Right.
Hello, welcome everyone. Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning.
You're
As you can
in
see,
a
I'm in
new
a
place
hotel room
today.
this morning. So, what's that? Yeah, we're praying that the hotel internet stays stable.
Oh boy. Well, you look great. You're in a new place. Where are you?
I'm in San Antonio, Texas.
Anything fun going on over there, retail related?
Yeah, no, we had I spoke at a conference here called the Inspire Conference. It was a bunch of product entrepreneurs, and we talked a lot about sales and pitching your products and getting in front of the buyer. So, yeah, we had a really good time.
Oh wow, that sounds like fun. We'll have to check it out for next year.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was like I said, it was a really good time. A lot of good entrepreneurs, a lot of good sharing, and getting together and just brainstorming. So yeah, it was a good week. It was a week long. So I'm I'm ready to get back because I'm going to London on Monday. So
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I'm like envious of you or
right,
what exactly I'm feeling.
don't be envious because I get to London. I do a seminar in front of the Department of International Trade, and then I leave from there and I go to Germany to go to the Ambiente show for a day and a half, and then I come home. So it's not like I'm touring around London.
Yeah.
It's work. So, but anyway, I enjoy it. So
Yeah. Sounds like fun. I'd love to see some of your videos from there. So hopefully we'll get to catch a glimpse of what you do on the road.
yeah, that'd be good.
So I was recently listening to your podcast on Buyer Deck. And that's kind of where we came up with the idea of, hey, let's do exactly what you did on your podcast. Let's do it live for our kid brands. So I think we're going to be doing that today. Not I think, we are. And I'm super excited because this is the first time that you and I physically get to kind of collaborate on something really cool and share it. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think that well, first of all, this is the first time, never been done, right? So I've talked a lot about buyer decks before. Actually, interestingly enough, and I'm glad that we're going through this because the podcast listener that asked me to do a podcast on buyer decks, after I did it, I checked back in with her and said, "Hey, so how was that?" And she said, "I'm more confused now than I was before you did it." And so sometimes I think that maybe I talk at maybe even a higher level than I'm realizing that people are at. So I'm glad that today we're going to go slide by slide. We're going to break it down for you. And we're going to talk about some of the pitfalls too that people fall into when they send a buyer deck to a buyer.
Yeah. And the biggest learning point for me in preparing for today's class was this is remarkably simple, but what makes it so simple is that I have an expert telling me what to do. But I mean, it's not like a 25, 40 page deck that you would think you have to make for like investors. It's the simplest thing if you know how to stay concise and how to edit yourself and highlight your best attributes of your product.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, speaking of investors, we just had an investor company speak at the conference this week, and they even said that when you send them their pitch deck, it's generally too big, too long, too much stuff. I mean, they're really interested in a lot of the stuff that a buyer's interested in.
That's really good to know. Yeah, because I think you put it best in our last workshop when you said it's you're not making a sale in these pages. You're whetting the appetite. You're giving them the taste. You're giving them enough for them to say, this is totally a meeting that I want to have to learn more.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about sales is all about interest. Okay. And it's important that people understand that. I have a new client and they're getting ready to go to a trade show. And I asked them what their goal was for the trade show. And they said, well, we want to walk away from there with a couple of sales. And I said, well, then you're probably going to be disappointed and you're going to think that the trade show was a waste of your money. And the reason is because no big buyer, no Costco buyer, Target buyer, Walmart buyer is going to come to your booth at a trade show and like write you an order. That's just not going to happen. What you're looking for is interest. And a buyer deck, you don't want it to sell because in a sale, you can lose it or win it. And the last thing you want is to send information to a buyer that allows them to make a decision without talking to you or talking to your children. And and really getting the full aspect of what you're doing. So if you put too much in there, they're like, yeah, this is not really for us. And so, and then they'll say, hey, you get that email that says, thanks, but we're going to pass. And you're wondering, what did I do? I mean, it was a great deck. And really what you did is you gave them too much information. Sales is emotional and they need a connection with you. And so you're trying to have them, the first thing is your email to get them to click on the deck, to get them to set an appointment with you. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's no different from like a movie trailer, right? How often do we see a movie trailer and you're like, I feel like I just watched the whole movie, right?
The entire movie, yeah. And I'm not, you know what? I'm gonna wait till that's out of the theater and
Yeah, like I just saw all the best parts in the trailer.
$2.99 and I'll stream it on. Yeah.
Right. So today, folks, if you are just settling in with us, thank you so much for blocking off this time with Tim and I. And we will be discussing today specifically buyer decks, if you didn't guess that already. We are in part 4 of our 4-part series called Big Box Kids, where we help you get your kid brand into retail shops like Target, wholesale, Costco, and all the major stores that we love. Over here to my left or right, depending on which way you're looking at us, I've got retail expert and podcast host of On the Shelf, totally binge-worthy, Tim Bush. And he is a not only retail expert, former executive in retail, but also the consultant that walks all of us through getting our kid brands into those stores and on the shelf. So Tim, thank you again for your time. It's been an incredible series so far. I really appreciate all your insights.
Yeah, it's been really fun. And for those of you joining us today, or maybe those of you that are going to watch the video later, thanks for taking a couple minutes to listen. Hopefully it'll be informative and some action that you can take so that you can, our whole goal with this series is to take maybe 20 years of my experience and whittle it down into 4 little parts so that even if it saves you 1 year of time, because technically if you write the right type of buyer deck and a buyer looks at it, that could save you a whole year. A lot of times people send a buyer deck, they never hear back and they give up on that retailer. Oh, that person doesn't want to hear from me. And it's just because I'll even tell you something right now. It could be because your buyer deck was too big. If it's over 5 megabytes, it won't ever even make it to their email box. It'll get kicked back or it just gets filtered out. And you're thinking, oh, they don't like me. They didn't like my product. They never saw it because it's not big. It's too big.
Right. Yeah, so those of you who are watching, you will come away with a live buyer deck done by an expert, a consultant that big brands pay for. You don't have an idea how lucky you are today. And Tim is going to tell us and show us how to create our story. It's not what you might think. And I love how you craft the story, Tim. So I'm really anxious to hear you teach that again today. And then at the end, Tim and I both will be opening up our calendars with just a few spots for live coaching calls with anyone who wants to sign up. Doesn't matter what age or stage your brand or your company or your product is in. We are both availing ourselves to you to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about regarding your kid brand, whether it be retail or branding. We've got you covered. So stick around till the end and you can grab one of those slots. So Tim, what you got on tap for us? Let's get rolling here.
Well, the first thing I want to, because this is our last one, hopefully we'll be able to cover a lot. Buyer deck is a big deal. So, and like I said, we've never done one live. So this is the coolest thing ever. But I do want to talk about real quick, something that's hugely important. I get a lot of clients that come to me, they have a brand new product and they want to go to Target. And they're like, let's go to Target. Let's go to Costco. Let's go to Walmart. And I'll say, well, what's your story? I mean, like, give it to me. And they'll start, well, I was born in, and I'm like, no. I don't mean like, what's your story? What's your personal story? I mean, what is your sales story?
Yeah.
Where did you start? Where are you now? What's the trend? And this is so important. And because if you're going to talk to a buyer at Target, we're using Target today. But if you're going to talk to a buyer at Target, they're going to want to know what your story is. Okay, so my story is, so we launched our first website on this date. We moved into e-commerce, major e-commerce on Amazon and on Walmart.com on this date. Our trend in sales grew over the last year on e-commerce. We, month over month, we were adding 10, 20, 30% per month. And now, as of now, we've sold, let's say, 2,000 units. Well, 2,000 units, folks, that's a vetted product. Those are 2,000 units that you sold to people that you don't know, that don't have a vested interest in telling you things that you only think you want to hear. These are people that bought the product because of what you told them it would do, and they kept it, and they wrote nice reviews. And so, based on your progression, your story, and maybe even after e-commerce, now you've gotten yourself into, let's say, 100 specialty retailers, mom and pop retailers. And those people, and here's an important part, have ordered, sold through your product, and then reordered. If you say it to a buyer, listen, our reorder rate in brick and mortar specialty is 70%. 70% of the specialty retailers that order our product reorder it. Ding, ding, ding. Now you're talking buyer language. That's a story. We started out on our own website. We went to e-commerce. We grew on e-commerce. We moved into specialty brick and mortar. They're ordering our product, and 70% of the time they're reordering it. Now we feel we're ready for big box. And it's only because of this story that we're ready. It's not, hey, I had a product idea. I went to China. I had it made. And now I'm ready to go into Target. The buyer is not going to look at that favorably. And then they're probably going to say, you know what, we're going to pass. But they're never going to tell you why they're going to pass. They're just going to say, we pass. And so all of a sudden you're going to say to yourself, this was a dumb idea. I should have never done it. What was I thinking? I can't make it in retail. It's not any of those things. It's not any of those things. It's that you haven't cultivated your story. You don't, take swimming lessons and for a summer and then go to the Olympics. That's not how it works. You have to have a progression. And your progression needs to be positive. And the last thing I'll say on this, if your progression's not positive, meaning you're not growing on Amazon, you can't get into specialty retail, then you need to find out why that is. And that's when you would call me. That's when you would call Liz. And you gotta talk to somebody that can help you see it from 30,000 feet and look down on it and give you perspective we've been there. I've been there. That's what I do for a living. I work with people that are trying to make it into big box retail. So maybe your progression's been awesome and now you're ready. Maybe your progression's not been awesome and you need some help. Either way, you need to look at your story.
Yeah. Now, one thing that we touched on in another video, so we won't go too deep, but I do want to highlight it because it's relevant to what you're saying. If you've sold on Amazon or if you're planning on selling on Amazon, is that a no-go when you're trying to get into, say, Target or Walmart, or is it actually something that they're looking for?
Yeah, so a buyer, I think, at Target or Amazon, at Costco or anybody would look at you strangely if you weren't on Amazon.
Okay.
That would be a question they would ask you, why are you not on Amazon?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to use that. They're going to read your customer reviews. They're going to see how you're ranked. That's going to tell them a lot about your product. Now, like you said, we're not going to dive in here because we got a buyer deck to build, but the pricing game on Amazon is what will kill you, right? If you're on Amazon and you that's all you can think of, you're in this little silo on Amazon and you're just having this race to the bottom with your competitors. First of all, if you have other people selling your exact product on Amazon, you're probably not ready to take that to retail. I believe we're probably talking to people who have created unique products and patented products only for you. So you don't have to play this pricing war, but don't get into the trap that I need to be cheap on Amazon. Whatever your price is on Amazon, that will be your price in big box retail, and you want to make sure you have enough margin. So to answer your question, Liz, no, it's not a no-go.
Okay, great. All right. Another note that I made as part of a story, when I was thinking about this as I was preparing for this call. I remember a time when Made in the USA held a lot of weight. Is that still the case today? I know that, it seems like everything is made in China these days, because of necessity, practically. But from a buyer's perspective, did in the USA hold any weight to the story?
No.
Mm.
No, in fact, I think it's a good add-on. Like if your product can be made in the USA and you can make it and you can sell it for the price that you want, yeah, that's a great thing. I'm not saying, but it's not a decision maker. They're not going to decide your product over another because it's made in the USA. And also, interestingly enough, I counseled a entrepreneur here at the conference, and she had a product that she's making here in the USA, but it's way too expensive. I mean, she'll never be able to sell it in retail. But she just was adamant, I don't want to go to China. And I said, well, what's your number one goal? And this is a product that makes kids feel better, okay, when they get hurt. And I said, what's your number one goal? And she said, to help kids. And I
Mm.
said, okay, if that's your number one goal, then you have to take it to China. You have to go there because if you don't, you're never going to make kids feel better.
No.
And maybe someday when you have enough volume, you can bring the manufacturing back to the USA and fulfill that dream too. But if your ultimate dream is to make kids feel better, then take it to China. Let them make it so that you can retail it and get it to the kids that need it and so on. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else on story? Must-haves or must-cuts?
Yeah, so like I said, your story also, like I said, it's just it really will tell you where you're at and what you need. So if you have a good story and it's progressive, then that will be interesting to a buyer. If your story's not progressive, you need help and reach out for help because there are people out there like myself who have done this hundreds and hundreds of times and can easily look at your product and tell you this is the issue, this is the problem. A lot of times people don't reach out for help because they don't want to know. And believe me, you want to know the issues. You want to know the problems. You should yearn to hear the constructive criticism on your product because that's only going to make it that much better.
Yeah. So, folks, the story up until this point, I know that we're dealing with a lot of kid brands that have beautiful stories. This is not exactly the story that you've been telling up until this point, right? This is not about your child's struggles or triumphs or major achievements or their age. It's not so much about the brand, which is the child, but it's more so about your product's journey, right? Yes, it was founded by a kid for XYZ reason, but like Tim is saying, it's really more about the product's journey, where it's been sold, how it's been sold, how it's been positioned. Is that right?
It's exactly right. And there's a place and time to talk about that story. And we're going to put that in the buyer deck, the one about your child and how they got to where they are and so on. But remember this, if you remember anything about sales and you focus on this one thing, is that sales is rarely ever about you.
Mm.
It's always about the person you're selling to and their issues, their problems. And buyers' problems aren't related to your product. They're related to sales and margin um, and packaging and those things. So when you're selling to a buyer, it's not about you and your struggle and how long it took you to do something and where you've come from. It's only about them and what they need and what they want. And so you can put in a little bit of that story because they do want to know about you, but that's not what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's dive in because I mean, I love geeking out on what's going on in someone else's mind. I mean, that any marketer loves behaviors, other people's behaviors, and how you can kind of manipulate that. So let's jump in. I'm going
We're
to
not doing psychology or anything, people. We're not. We're not. I'm not going to start crying or anything like that.
We'll see. We'll see.
Right?
All right. So
That wasn't a challenge.
yeah, I'm going to jump off here and I'm going to share my screen.
Look at that. You're winning retail buyer deck with our pictures on it. So guys, you're not going to be able to hear Liz here because when we put up a picture so that you can see, you're only going to be able to hear me. So most likely Knowing Liz, she's talking a lot right now, but you just can't hear her. All right. So one of the things I want to tell you about your buyer deck is that however long you think it needs to be shorter than that. Okay. It needs to be short, short, short. 45-page buyer deck is going to get deleted. So there's a couple key areas that you want to cover in a buyer deck, and one of those is your title page, the first page that's going to come up in your deck, and so that generally is a big hero shot of your product, like you see right here, the juice box and your company. Now, if you want to make it specific to the company that you're target, let's say, you can put their logo on that too. Now, key thing, if you're going to put Target's logo on the front of your buyer deck, their logo needs to be bigger than yours. Okay? I know that just sounds weird, right? But it does. They don't want to feel like, oh, here you are, and there they are. So they're, oh, look, Liz is crushing it right now. She's looking for Target logos. That's might be a little too big, but see, do you see this, people? This is just happening right now. I'm loving it. The Drink Box Company. I don't even know if that's a real company, if that just came out of Liz's mind, but I like that it's got its own little logo and everything. All right. So you see that you don't always have to have, for instance, if you're going to a trade show and you're going to meet with a bunch of people, you don't always have to have the logo on there. But if you're going specifically to Target, it's a nice touch to personalize the deck with their logo too. Okay. So this kind of scenario that Liz just said, perfect. All right. So you have the title page, and it's easy to know what it is that your guys are talking about, right? Big pictures of the drink box. And here's another piece of advice for you. Even if you have 100 products, you're never going to sell 100 products to a buyer at any one time. Okay. It's too much for them. They won't know what to do, where to go, what to buy, and they'll get confused. So you would always whittle it down to maybe your top 4 products, your top 3 products. And if you only have one product, then of course that's all you have. So you're going to put that on there. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so this is a picture of who we are. This is where you get to talk about your journey, not your sales story, but your journey. This is who we are. This is what we've done, how we came up with it, but just don't make it too long. Okay, because the buyer's not going to, read down through that. But remember, and again, I'm going to give you a couple of things that I really want you to write down and get them deep embedded into your brain. The whole idea behind a buyer deck is to create interest. And also, it's a leave behind. Okay. You, in a face-to-face meeting with a buyer, are never going to read from this deck. You're not going to read this little section that Liz is creating right here that talks about the inception of the product and what the company name is and where the company's located, and your daughter's the CEO, and all this stuff that's going to go into who we are and what we do is going to go here. But you're never going to read that. Okay, that stuff's got to be up here. You're going to talk about it. This deck is a leave behind. Okay, it's a so because when you're gone, that buyer, if they want to buy your product, they have to sell that product to their boss, and they're going to forget all the things that you said. So the deck is so that when they hand it over to their boss can read through it and see who you are, what you've done, what you're, who you are and what you do. So Liz, I'm going to tell you, and I know you can't respond back to me, but I'm assuming what you're writing right now is amazing, but we can't really see it. Well, maybe if I put my glasses on, I could see it, but it's pretty small. But I'm assuming that Liz is putting on there, like I said, who we are. Hi, we're the so-and-so box company. I've already forgot the name of the company that we're doing here. We're the so-and-so box company. We were founded on this date. Our corporate offices are here in blah, 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 ABC city. The idea came from our daughter who was having issues with, whatever it is, juice boxes leaking in her lunchbox or blah, 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 whatever. And she thought, hey, why can't we create something that does this? And you, as an intuitive parent, grabbed a hold of that idea and said, whereas hundreds of other parents hear ideas from their kids all the time and it just goes in one ear and out the other, but that's not you. You said, I don't know, why can't we do that? That's awesome. Let's try that. And you guys create, and the juice box was born. Okay. That's all that you need to have right here. It doesn't have to be super elaborate. They're not going to read down through like the day-to-day struggles or anything like that. But they do want to know where the idea came from. So who you are and what you do, and a little bit of a story about where things came from. All right. Now we're going to get right into it because a buyer has very limited time. We're going to go right to the product after this. There it is. So this might be considered, Liz, this might be considered a packaging slide. And so there's a slide that you have after this that's more, there you go. Features. Let's go to features. All right. So here's a picture of your product and the specific features that it has that stand out. So you want to maybe label this unique features or features that set us apart. Just features is not going to, if it's just the same features as 10 other juice boxes out there, that's not going to work. So these are unique features. These are features that you have that nobody else has. These are, because this came out of your kid's head, most likely nobody else has thought of this. And especially, obviously, you check that out after so these are going to be things that are going to drive people to the category. Okay. And that's going to be one of the very first things that a buyer wants to hear that they're never going to tell you. What they need is increased sales in their category, not sales that are split now between two products, or cannibalized is the word I'm looking for, between two products. These are sales that are additional. Okay. And why are people going to come to their category and bring additional sales? It's these unique features that are going to do that. And so you might, now Liz has got that as a question, and that's for you to say what will drive customers to this category. But I've even written in this unique features that drive additional category business. I've even written it in that complete way. She's got it as a question so that you can think about that. But let's put it in terms of what we might actually say. Additional category sales. Yeah. And under here, you can bullet point the key things and why they drive sales. So we have this particular piece and people are looking for that and so, gosh, I'm getting tongue tied here, but driving additional category sales means that somebody will come to this category and buy additionally over and above what they normally buy out of this category. And the reason they're going to do that is because of this new unique feature that we know, let's say, certain kids are looking for. And so if you have a story, by the way, here's a good way to figure this out. If you really can't put it in words, like you're just thinking, man, how do I write this in a way? If you have that sales story that we were talking about, go back and read your reviews on Amazon, on your website. Your customers will tell you the unique features that your product has that really make it, that really make them want to buy it. No other lunchbox, compatible drink container, needed for multiple kids. Yeah, and maybe this has something like a microban in it, or it's antimicrobial. It has something on the inside so that because and so let's say it has we're making a product right now. Let's say it has antimicrobial on the inside, so because your kid it leaves residue in there, and then it's in their hot lunch box all day before they get home, and then they forget to take it out of their backpack, and so it's overnight. Nothing will grow in there, and it doesn't smell. And so where she's writing non-leaking, let's say you patented a specific mechanism that makes it that literally makes it airtight. Okay, so you might put patented locking lid system or something like that that people are looking for because their drinks keep spilling inside the lunchbox or whatever. Okay, so you guys kind of get the idea. Multiple, what is that? Multiple sizes and colors. That's not, by the way, just so you know, multiple sizes and categories, not a sales driving feature, but it does bring additional category sales when I buy this in multiple colors for different days. Okay. So it's not a unique feature. Everybody has additional colors, everybody has additional sizes, but within category, you're driving additional sales because it's not just green or it's not just blue. People are going to want to buy multiple colors. All right. So I think we get the idea.
So I'm just going to chime in here. It looks like we may have had a small interruption with Tim's feed. I'm not sure if he can hear me. But what he was explaining with these slides is, I agree. Unfortunately, I can't share the slides and talk at the same time. But the difference between a feature or specification would be different with the unique feature. So the difference between a specification would be the colors, the multiple sizes. A unique feature now is, think about it as if you were a parent going into this category to buy lunchbox containers, right? So it's the beginning of the school year. What containers is your child going to need, right? You're going to need like an ice pack. You're going to need a sandwich container. You're going to need the actual lunchbox. But if you are health conscious and you're looking for something to carry some type of homemade juice or tea, things like that for your child, you're going to need some kind of a container that also fits inside the lunchbox. So that would be growth in the category, because there wouldn't currently be anything aside from your water bottle, right, that goes to school for juice or for tea, right, or a non-sugary item if you have a school that has non-sugary items. So in that case, that would be a unique feature that grows the category. Remember that we are thinking about the mind of the buyer as they look at their overall lunch container or school container category. Because ideally, if we would have done our homework right in before product development, if we would have gone into the stores and taken a look at, as well as taken pictures of what the shelves look like, then we can, hey, he's back. So I was just, let's see.
Saving me? You were saving me?
Yeah, I was just explaining as we go into the store and look at the category where we envision our product being. And if, for example, in this case, we would be thinking about, okay, it's the beginning of school. We're buying our lunchbox, our ice packs, and our Tupperware. We need to identify, are we the only person there in that plastic reusable juice box category? So that would be the case. And we want to put ourselves in the shoes of, are we growing that category with our product? And the answer would be yes, because aside from a reusable water bottle that we all buy our kids, now you have a reusable juice box container where you can actually cut down on sugar consumption, and you can make juices and teas and take them to your like low sugar school. So that is an example of a unique feature rather than a specification. Well, we come in these cool colors. Who cares? But now if you're telling, again, like Tim said, the story of the product and why my customer is going to buy this when they're standing in an aisle full of Tupperware containers. Make sense?
Yeah, so problem solving too, right? Sales is all about solving problems. So when you're putting your features down and they're category drivers, they also need to be the things that solve problems. So when we were talking about the patented new leak-proof mechanism, that's a problem solver. That's something that people are probably struggling with that you guys fixed, and so that's key to go there. Um, Although the colors is not a unique, it's a category sales driver because people will pick up multiple colors.
All right, so I'm going to jump back into the slides and you'll keep going.
Hopefully. Yeah, you know how you when you're in a hotel and you sign up for internet and then that same time the next day when that take comes around, it just cuts you off and you have to re-sign up? That's what happened. All right, so let's go to what we were talking about. We were just about to go to the next slide, which is the picture of the nope, go back up. That one right there. So here we talk about here we're gonna we're gonna talk about specifications, all the cool things that you talked about. The things that are unique about your product. You're gonna call them out here. Now, if you could have this on the same page that you have when you're talking about your uniques, that makes a little bit more sense. But sometimes it's just not big enough. You can't fit it all, and it doesn't look good. So in that case, yes, add this slide, and you're going to talk about yes, specifications, and you're going to list out and show them all the different things that are unique about this particular product, so that they can see them. Here's the lid. Here's the straw. Here's the patented closing mechanism. This is where the antimicrobial is. This gives them a visual of your product and how it works and the different things. And this is where you would really call out the things that you've done, you've patented, your child solved. This is where you get that chance to say this particular lid right here was designed, and what this is what you would say in the pitch meeting. You don't write this, but this particular lid was patented by whoever your daughter's name is or your son's name is, that patented by them. And see how we have little lines drawing to the different things in this. If you can actually take your bullet points and draw those lines to the specific thing, that would be kind of even more of a visual. So Liz says, let's do that right now. We're going to make that happen. This is happening before your eyes, people. Do you see it? All right. So again, you have to understand a buyer sees literally hundreds of products a month. And so what you're showing them is not just a juice box. They've seen hundreds of these. What you want to spend your time talking to them about is what makes this juice box different, what you've added to it, what was your child's brainstorm that caused this whole thing to happen. So you get the idea. Liz, you don't have to connect all those. I don't want us to run out of time, but you guys get the idea that connecting those directly to the parts, it can be a nicer visual. To make things even nicer, folks, we're having construction in this hotel too. So if you can hear that in the background, I'm sorry. Hey, Liz, now you go back to your packaging. Next slide would be retail packaging. That one. Yep. So you have your title page, you have your who are we and what do we do page, you have your product page, you have your spec page, and now you're talking about retail packaging. So this is a good slide that Liz has put together here. It shows them the front and the back. It shows them, part of the packaging here is exposed. so that they can actually see the product. Um, the back shows the detail, in little icons as to the features of the product. I'm assuming I can't see that because I'm blind, um, but you're giving them a good idea. Now, I can see that you can see that there's writing. I'm pointing at the screen like that matters, like I have a pointer or something. Sorry. Um, you can see that there's actually information on the sides that you can't see here. So what I might have done is split this into two quadrants, quadrant here and then a quadrant down here, and so that we can show the sides of the packaging. So here's the front, here's the back, here's what's on the side. That's key, and I don't know, Liz, whether you have pictures that actually show the sides clearly, but what you put on the side is important. It's actually real estate that you can tell part of your information. So you're going to want to show. Um, yeah. So she's just putting. You would not write that, by the way, folks, front backside. But I think she's just putting that there to remind you to show the front, show the back, show the sides. If there's nothing on the sides, so don't show the sides. Okay. But this is also great. And Liz, what you can do here, because buyers are young these days and they've not come up through the store. A lot of times they're hired right out of college. They're data people. They just do data. So they don't know what it's like to merchandise. And so a cool feature for this particular packaging is you could put I'm still pointing at the screen. You could put a little line to the peg hole, and say peggable for inline side caps and end caps. So versatility in merchandising is something that store managers love, because they don't always, sometimes they have to shift products because things sell out and things um, are not coming in time, or they have to flex space over. So if your packaging is versatile, meaning it can sit on a shelf, it can hang on a peg, it can go on a side cap, it can go uh, um, on a clip strip. Those are all key features that help the people in the store merchandise effectively. So with a peg like this and a small product, it could go inline, which means in the aisle, with all the other juice boxes pegged. It can go on a side cap, which if you're so here's the aisle, and on the end of the aisle, on the end of the aisle, there's an end cap. Okay. And on the side of that end cap, it's called a side cap. And normally it's pegged product. And then if you've ever been in an aisle and there's a little strip just hanging down, clipped onto the shelf, and there's product on that, that's called a clip strip. This product right here can be merchandised on a side cap, end cap, and clip strip. And then on the bottom, because it's flat, it can also sit on a shelf. So you should call out versatile packaging, good for um, shelf merchandising, peg, side cap, and clip strip. Make sense? I'm assuming, Liz, that you're shaking your head yes. Also, this product, and we could talk a little bit about this, but this product might come in what's called the PDQ. And if you're wondering if PDQ is some really technical term, it's not. It's pretty damn quick is what it really stands for. And if you've ever seen a product that sits in a little box, and the box has graphics around it, that box actually just slid out of a shipping case and just went on the shelf. And that's why they call it pretty damn quick, because you just pull it out of the box and put it on the thing. It's already contained in this little what we call a shipper, or a PDQ display. And this is a good product that could also fit into a PDQ. And then they can take those PDQs and they can put them at the register lane. They can put them at different areas. They can cross merchandise them. That might be something that we'll dive deeper into when. But if you did have a PDQ, you would show that packaging option on this page. Okay. All right. So So I'm going to tell you, interestingly enough, that we could be done right here. And I know you're going to think that that's not very much, and this seems pretty easy, and it's not rocket science. But so Liz, can we go from page to page to page real quick? So starting at our title page, if you could arrange those in the order that we, first of all, arrange the slides in the order that we did. So title page, then who we are and what we do, then product, then specs, then packaging, right before your eyes, people. This is happening. All right, so let's start. All right, let's start from the title page. Bring that up. That's not it. All right, there you go. So here you're starting the drink box company. You go right from there to who we are and what we do. Okay, Jenny March Creator. Yeah, let's leave that other slide out for now. So creator, highlights. Then we're going to go right to the product. Right? Then we're going to go to the specs. Then we're going to go to the packaging. And then, like I said, technically we could be done right here. Depending on what the product is, I might add one more slide, and it would be called, I call it why we're a good fit. Okay. And this is a slide. Let's see, marketing campaigns. No. You might say, why Target? And this is where you can put some bullet points that you've done research on demographically for the product, their customers. So this is where you can talk about, this is our customer. This is our customer demographic, and this is how it matches up perfectly with Target. We were talking about this yesterday at the conference. I had one of the people at the conference show me a sales letter that he's sending to buyers, and the sales letter is so generic, it just looks generic. And I told him, I said, if you're sending this to a Target buyer, in the letter, you want to mention Target somewhere, right? You know, you want to talk about why you think Target's a good fit. You know, they get hundreds of these letters every day, but the ones that talk specifically make it seem like you've researched the company and their demographics, and you've matched that with your demographic. That will mean something to the buyer. Demographic fit, describe your customers, talk specifically to the Target store and their demographic. You can get that information off their website, off their investor relations section of their website, who their customer is. You can also speak, this is also an area where you can speak personally. We are Target shoppers. We are your demographic. And therefore, we've produced this product and know that it will fit the demographic of the average Target customer. Now, this looks a little generic right here, but you would definitely want to just build this page out. And if you need help, of course, you can call on us to help you with that. You can put this in, or you cannot put it in. It's really up to you. If you have this information, great. If it really is a good fit and you can show that it is, put it in. If it seems really generic and like you're just putting in to check a box off, leave it out. What we have right now, believe it or not, is enough to create interest. Sometimes it's cool to look at what Target is doing. You know, when I was selling them, when they first created their grocery section, and I would be pitching them a grocery product, I would have this page in there because I would say, as Target continues to build out their grocery business, this could be a key part of that. So understanding what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish, and how your product fits into that. But again, if it seems very generic, like you're just trying to check a box, don't put it in. But you have to ask yourself right now, if you got this deck with the product, the uniques, the specifications, the packaging, and then an understanding of why it fits into your store, would that be enough to at least say yes or no that I want to know more? And the answer to that is yes, that's enough. And it's not overwhelming, it's not too long. There's one other page that you would add to this, but I want to see, Liz, bring up some other pages that you have so that we can talk about mixing and matching pages, maybe if you want to add this or not add that. So I don't know what page this is, but you could put a story page in there to talk about your sales progression. Not necessarily, you don't want to talk numbers, okay? You don't want to ever give in this initial, especially in writing, specific numbers that they could say those are good or bad. You want to talk percentages. And you can talk, like I said, you could talk about your sales progression here. We started in here, we went to here, we went to here, we had a 20-30% growth month over month in e-commerce. We moved into specialty and 70% reorders, and then now, which makes us ready for big box. If you want to include the slide, me personally, I save this for the pitch. This is enough. I save this for my personal pitch. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about in person. I want to talk about the sales story. So I never put this in, but we're just giving you options here. Now I saw Liz also had a slide on your mission. Okay. It's not, your mission is not something that's super important to the buyer. Okay. What you guys are trying to accomplish, that's up to you. That's for you guys. You might tell them that in person if you get an in-person meeting. Again, I wouldn't clutter up your business deck with this. If they decide to go to your website, they can see your mission statement on the website, but I wouldn't put it in the deck. I also saw that she had a slide in there on what was it? I can't think of it now. What other slides do you have in there? Marketing campaigns. That was it. Okay. If you have current marketing campaigns in progress, that you guys are doing to drive sales to other areas that you're selling, put those in. And this would be a good slide to have. If you're talking about marketing campaigns that you want to do when you land a national retailer, don't put those in. Okay, because that means nothing to the buyer. They're only interested in what you've done, not what you're gonna do. So if you're running, let's say you're in a buying group, a specialty buying group that sells to specialty retailers, and you're doing massive advertising there, you can put that in there. If you are running, if you want to put some of your social numbers, if your social numbers are good, if you have 30,000 people on your Facebook page, if you have an Instagram that has 12,000 followers, if you have a YouTube account that has 10,000 followers, put that in and talk about what you're doing socially. Buyers love that these days. They want to know because that's what they want to leverage, and they're hoping to leverage that. But if your numbers are small and insignificant, don't put small and insignificant numbers onto your buyer deck. That's something you're going to have to massage in person when you're talking to them. What are you guys doing socially? Well, we're doing this, we're doing that. I can help you with that when the time comes. If your numbers are good, definitely put them in. And you would put them in a basic bullet point. YouTube, 30,000 active followers. Facebook, 36,000 active followers with a 61% engagement rate or whatever it is. Because these have to be true because they can go look. They can go look at your Facebook page and your Instagram page and all of that stuff. But don't just talk followers. If you can talk about engagement too, if you're going to put the slide together and you can talk about engagement, talk about engagement. Again, like I said, key point, if it's not good, then don't put it in. All right, the last page that you want to put is going to be your contact page. This is important to have at the end, even though you may be including a card. Cards get lost. You always want to have at the end of your deck who you are, how they can get a hold of you. You don't need to put your mailing address in there. In fact, I would certainly leave that out. And just as we say, if people look, it just disappears. Email, website, your name, your email, your phone number, and your website are the things that go here. Or if you have a sales rep, all of my clients, when they send me their deck or if we build their deck, we make it editable. So if it's me calling on the person, if it's one of my salespeople calling on the person, they can customize this for them, because you never want to send something from Michael and then the contact name is Marie on the thing. That's confusing to the buyer. Who do I talk to? Who's my contact? If you have different people pitching for you, if you have a sales rep that's calling on a couple of retailers, make sure that they can have a deck that's customized to them so it says that they're the contact. Oh, look at that. I'm the contact. And by the way, just so you know, I probably wouldn't put sales rep in front of that. I would just put contact us, Tim Bush, and in my email. Make it someone who is prepared to talk. Yeah, I'll tell you guys a quick funny story. I was just in this, even I make mistakes, and of course I make mistakes. And so I was just in this lull one day, and I was calling buyers, and I wasn't getting anybody, so I just kept calling. And the next thing you know, I hung up the phone, and boom, I got a call back, and it was from Dick's Sporting Goods, and the buyer was like, "Yeah, you just called me," and I was stunned. I was like, "What? You calling me back?" I wasn't prepared to have anything in front of me. I was just calling on for a bunch of different clients. And so I didn't have all the stuff I needed in front of me. And I had to be just honest with that guy and say, listen, yeah, I'm not prepared to, I was just leaving you a message. I wasn't prepared to have this conversation. Can I call you back? And the guy was cool about it, but lesson for me, don't ever call anybody unless you're prepared to talk to them and you have all your stuff there. All right, guys, so we have a finished buyer deck here, and I hope you're realizing that this is easier than you probably thought it was, faster than you probably thought it was. We did it in an hour, and if you prepare prepare your stuff ahead of, there she is, and the artist is back.
Wow, that was really cool.
Right?
So through all of this, you've sent me a couple samples, which was really neat to kind of have that bird's eye view. But I saw that most of your, if not all of your presentations don't go over 7 pages.
5 to 7. The only time they go over 7 is if you have a couple of products and you specifically need a page for each product to really build it out. That's the only thing that's allowed. And remember, if you're going to put one of those extra pages in, it has to be powerful and a reason for it. So if you're going to put in a social media page, your social media needs to be awesome. Otherwise, just leave it out. But they're not going to miss it, but they are going to scrutinize it if you put it in. So if you put it in and it's bold and 30,000 here and 15,000 there, awesome. But if you don't have that, just leave it out. They're not going to miss it.
Yeah, agreed. Totally. Yeah. And, I think my father was in the law firm business for many, many years. And I learned with him Don't talk more than you have to. So don't put more in the presentation than you have to, because it typically ends up hurting you because you're opening up cans of worms that you really don't need to be going into, especially in a document where you're not there to explain or describe or what have you. So concise, 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 I think is definitely the key here, right?
Right. I mean, if have you ever worked for somebody and you asked them, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And then they told you, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's not at all what I wanted." But now you're locked into putting it that way because they're the boss. And I'm like, "Hey, if you don't want to know the boss's opinion, don't ask them." So yeah, don't overdo it because it just gives them questions that they wouldn't have even thought about asking. That's why all we're trying to create here, people, is interest. We're not selling anything here.
Right.
We're just creating interest. And
Got
that deck that Liz just created is enough to create interest. And the big interest, the place that the buyer's going to spend the most time is on the product spec page and on the uniques page. What makes this product different? They're going to scroll right to that.
right.
Remember, the rest of it is to help them sell it to their boss. All you're trying to get is a phone call, a meeting, a face to face.
That is so enlightening. I mean, that's a huge breath of fresh air that you don't have this giant thing looming over you, especially when we've got like designing really simple products that don't have a ton of moving parts and don't have a lot of fluff to them. But do yourself a favor. Go and spend some time in the aisle. See what your customers are touching and picking up. See who they are, right? What demographic they are. Are you in a Hispanic area? Or is it heavy female? Are both parents typically doing the shopping, especially like in this case, for example? Get to know it intimately. You have probably been behind closed doors with your product for a year, maybe a few months, a year, and you have not gotten any real time, real world feedback. Before you start sending cowboy emails and doing decks, do yourself a favor. And back in the day, I had a retail store back in 2000, late 2000. And at the time, everybody was saying, go get in your car and park outside the building that you want to move into, or park in the neighborhood that you want to move into, and stay there for 4 or 5 hours so that you can,
Or at least until the police come.
right, yeah, your car gets tagged. So that you can see who's walking up and down the streets, what the traffic is like, all of that stuff. Luckily today we have, different methods, thankfully, but please do yourself that favor. Get intimately close with your end buyer, because it's only going to do you good when you get that buyer meeting, when you draft your email, when you create your deck. You're going to know who is physically touching the products, who's walking those aisles, who's buying from those aisles, right? It's not just some imaginary story that you think is really cute in your head, right?
Yeah. So if you were to come to me and you said that you were ready to go into retail, let's say you're just starting out, one of the first things I would ask you is, how did your validation go?
Mhm.
And part of your validation is exactly what Liz said. You might spend your time in the aisle and talk to people that are buying juice boxes. You might show them your product and say, "Hey, would this be interesting to you? And if so, how much would you pay for it?" I just had a client that was getting ready to open molds on a pop-up tent product on the beach for the beach, and I mean, he was ready to pull the trigger on like $12,000 worth of molds. And they went to the beach with their prototype, and it just got shot down, bam, 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 by like everybody that they talked to was like, "No, I wouldn't do that." No, and instead of being discouraged, he was so happy that he didn't spend the money. So if you already produce, if you're getting ready to produce a product, you got to spend some time in the category talking to the people that are buying there. Would they buy your product? How much? And don't say, "Would you spend $9 for it?" Say, "How much would you pay for it?" And and if you get bad feedback, it can be difficult, but try to ask them why. Okay, well, what about it wouldn't you buy? Or, "I don't like the color, or I don't like this, or I don't like that." These are honest people. It's not your parents, it's not your kids, it's not your friends. All those people are going to tell you your product's awesome. These are people that have no vested interest in making you happy. Those are your customers. So you got to spend time in the aisle, and that's going to come through super authentically when you're talking to the buyer, because you're going to say, "Well, in your aisle specifically, you have like 4 rows of blah blah blah, and you guys normally put the ones on the bottom," and the buyer's just going to be looking at you like you could merchandise that aisle because you're so familiar with it.
Yeah. And you might think, you might walk around your store, your ideal store, and see your product in a category on a shelf that is not typical. And I'll give you an example. My daughter's main marquee product is a pillowcase, right? You might think that belongs in bedding. No, it doesn't, because her pillowcase is actually a beauty product. It's a fashion statement. You take it with you on the road to take care of your hair and your face. So it does not belong in bedding, right? So if I didn't have that key feature, that key story attribute in my deck, immediately you see a pillowcase, oh, wrong buyer, this goes to bedding, right? You see how dangerous that can be. It's not a bedding product. It should not go in bedding. It's a beauty product and it's a fashion accessory. So it needs to be going into the beauty buyer's mailbox. You can see how something so tiny that's so obvious to me, I've never even thought about my product being in bedding actually, because it's for hair. But the buyer, someone who doesn't necessarily personally buy that product, would think something completely different, right? So maybe
that's such a great point.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, you have got to do your homework inside of a store from an objective standpoint, not from I just spent $10,000 in my kid's business and this thing's got to work. You need to put that away and possibly even give your product, if you're not currently selling, to random people to try and abuse and wash it and microwave it and dishwasher it and all of that stuff and see what happens.
Yeah, that's all part of understanding that the last thing you want ever in life is to produce a couple containers for a larger store and then have there be some major flaw, have there be some major issue, have there be. I had a client one time that ordered 60,000 units of her product. That was before she got to me. 60,000. That's what somebody gave her the advice of. And do you know how many she had left after we were working together?
I don't want to know.
Like 58,000. I mean, we sold the product to a bunch of retailers, but it didn't sell, and there was a major flaw in it. And then because of that major flaw, we couldn't even dump it to like TJ Maxx or anything. So 60,000.
Yeah. I mean, and that happened to us on a small scale. You've heard it in this series. Our very first pillowcase was just like any other pillowcase by way of construction, right? But it's satin. So the moment that you put that pillowcase on your pillow, within the hour, it's off the pillow because it just slides right off. So we didn't really realize that until we sold the first few. And thankfully, it was random people on Instagram, right? It wasn't like a beeline of customers at Target. And we could quickly pivot. We could quickly add in the zipper, and we knew right away what to fix. Rather than saying, I have one hell of a product, it's like the top of its trend right now. Target's totally going to jump on this, sell it, and then, whoops, everybody hates it because you can't even keep it on the pillow.
Well, in a store like Target, what will happen is they won't hate it. They'll just return it. And so all of a sudden your return rate will go from a 0.5% all the way up to, 16, 17, 18, 20%. And remember, if I haven't said it before, the only two things that really can get you kicked out of a retailer is quality problems with your product that drive up your return rate and poor logistics, not being able to deliver on time. Now there's other things, but those are the main two things. And so you want to find those things out, just like Liz did, on a small scale and fix it. You don't want to have that happen when, 1,800 Target stores have your product.
Yeah. So on that note, Tim, I know that we're going to go a little bit longer. So if you're still with the conversation, if you're still enjoying this, please hang with us. I reminded everybody in the beginning that both Tim and I are opening up our calendars. I'm going to put those links here in the chat in just 2 minutes. But I would love for Tim to kind of give us the high level tick marks of knowing if we're actually retail ready, maybe a possible recap. But at this point, I know that it's been a lot of information that we've given you, and the age and stage of your business may or may not be ready for this right now. But as Tim has advised us, he wants to know where you're headed sooner than later, so he can, save you tons of work and headache. So we do want to know at this point where exactly you are. Where is your brand at this point, and what is your vision for the next year or two as your brand and your product evolves and matures? So Tim, if you can kind of give us a high level checklist of whether or not we're retail ready while I put those links in the box.
Okay. So retail ready, we're going to assume that retail ready means any type of retail. So we're going to talk e-commerce, we're going to talk specialty, we're going to talk big box. Um, you are retail ready when you have a finished product. Okay, and then maybe if you're just going for e-commerce, maybe that's not full retail packaging. But if you've vetted your product, you've validated, you've had it produced, your pricing is right, you have enough margin to go into retailer. What's enough margin? At least 7 times your X Works cost. So whatever it cost you at your factory, your retail needs to be able to be at least 7, and I'd love it to be 10 times that. So if it costs you $2 to make it at the port in China, then you should be selling it for $19.99. Okay, if it costs you $2 to make it, and you're trying to retail it for $9.99, that's not enough margin. So you got a product. It's been produced. It's been validated. Your pricing is correct. You have a website, so you have a place for people to go to learn about you and your story. And it's basically your home base. It doesn't have to be super fancy. It could be a landing page, but you have some place for people to go to validate that you are, and that website matches the look and feel of your product and your product packaging. Then you're ready, okay? And you're ready to start that progression. You're ready to start your story. You're ready to start your story. And that's the most exciting thing. And I know what you're thinking. I know you're like, wow, I'm really far away from that. So I'm not going to take advantage of this free consultation time, or I would never book a paid call because we're just not ready. And the answer to that is that's not true. The time to get to us is as early as you can, so that we can make sure. You might say, this is what I want to do. I'm going here, here, here. And if we can tweak that and turn that, it's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to save you a lot of effort. It's going to save you a lot of money. So it's worth it. Especially take advantage of this, the free consultation for sure. There's only a couple spots for that. So if you want to, and so you're ready when you're ready to start your story. Okay. If you need help along the way, that's when you want to contact us. You're ready to go into big box when there's a story, a sales story behind your product. You're ready to go into specialty when there's an e-commerce story behind your product. You're ready to go into e-commerce when you validated, produced your product at enough margin. Okay, that's how you know. Oh, and there they are.
Excellent, Tim. So I've put in both of our links. As Tim mentioned, there's a handful of spots. I checked both of our calendars, and I think there really is only about 5 or 6 coming up for this particular free promo having to do with Big Box Kids. So please click on the link. There's 2. One will be Tim Bush, and that is very retail-centric, product-centric, even if you're only thinking about it, even if you don't have a product yet, but you know you're going down the product lane, right? So we have a hair brand, and we knew that we had products on the brain before we even got to product, right? So if your idea is you've got a candy item or a food item or a beauty item, whatever the case is, and it's just a sparkle in your eye right now, please book that call with Tim. It is 30 minutes, just you and him talking about just your idea or your product. Do yourself a favor. You're not getting anybody out of their way. Book that call. The second,
I was going to say, hold on. Just if you're scared to talk to me about a product idea, go online and get yourself just a generic NDA. I don't mind signing it.
Non-disclosure agreement.
That's right. A non-disclosure agreement. You can find a generic one, then you just insert my name and your name, and it has all the basic legal jargon in there. But if you're afraid to talk about somebody about your idea, you don't want to get stolen, then send us an NDA and we'll sign that so that you can talk freely.
There you go. There you go. The second link is 30 minutes with me, and that's specifically around branding, positioning, web design, brand design. And anything having to do with your child's brand specifically, or maybe a product brand, definitely give me a call. I'm available on the dates that you'll see there at that link. And of course, you can find either one of us online, social media. You can binge listen to Tim on ontheshelfnow.com, and that's his podcast. So you've got access to us all the time. We are on your team. We're not
We're too
asking
many places.
yeah, we're not asking for anything in return. We, from the bottom of our hearts, want to help your kids and you navigate this process in the right way and save you tons of money and tons of time, because we know that that's too precious. So I do want to also talk a little bit about being retail ready from a branding side, right?
There we go.
So the big thing is you may not have it now. I don't want this to scare you, but the things that you will need to have: some type of a web presence, right? Doesn't have to be a 5-6 page website, but it should be a page that either talks about, ideally both, your child or their creator and your product, right? Video is always best. Short video, like a minute and a half max, because you're doing this in the terms of, this isn't necessarily customer facing or end customer facing. It's going to be buyer facing or perhaps media facing, someone who's going to help you further or promote your brand or your product, right? So everybody's pitching these professionals. So it needs to be like 1 minute, and that would be great. And that is your kid's story and your product story, whatever that product is, and how it's used. So if it's meant for children, you've got a 5-year-old on the ground playing with it, operating it. If it's meant for elderly people, you've got an elderly person. You need to be able to tell that story in under 2 minutes on a video, okay? You do not have to have your logo figured out, your colors figured out. Remember, you are running a kid brand that's going to evolve and mature very quickly and quite differently with every 6-month period. So we just need to be ready for that and have as much information as possible without getting stuck and buried into all the details, right? If you've got a social media following, you want to connect to that. If not, that's fine too. But just be really clear. Don't get cluttered. If you're truly a kid brand, mom or dad should not be doing the stuff, right? If your kid is the face of the brand, we don't need to hear mom or dad talking about how great my kid is. Not the point, right? They need to tell their brand story and their product story. So that's the big one. And then, of course, please, the first thing I'm going to ask you, if you're in a product-based business, have you booked your free 30 minutes with Tim? Because he is part of your team. He's going to know right off the bat where you fit and where you don't fit. So if you're thinking, Tim, I need to be in Target or I'm going to die, right? And he's going to tell you, then you're going to need a new product because your product fits X, Y, Z, right? And you want that information up front, right? So I want to thank all of you for being here. Tim has been a blast to hang out with. He's like a wealth of knowledge. I still listen to his podcast, was on his podcast last night in preparation for this call. And I just love listening to what he knows and what he's been through and what he has seen in the ups and downs of retail, because it is evolving right in front of our eyes. And having someone kind of at the helm guiding you, there's just no other way to do it in my mind. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Well, Liz, thanks for giving the opportunity. I think it's real special. I'm glad to be here and help out, especially young entrepreneurs. And, our world is changing so much. And the world that our kids are going to live in is not a one-job world. It's not a one-gig world anymore. It's a multiple gig, multiple type thing world. And if you are listening, and if you have a child and they have a product, you are helping them to move into this multi-gig world, because jobs aren't as secure as they were when I was growing up. And my dad, worked for Delta Airlines for, 40 years. It's just, that's not where we live anymore. People are working remote, and the opportunities that you're giving your kids by listening to them, taking their ideas, making them a reality. It's amazing. I applaud you. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. And these days, everybody here watching, everybody in your kid's classroom, probably by now, has got a following of at least 1,000 people somewhere, right? Literally, it's the time that we live in. almost everyone sitting in the classroom today probably has a following somewhere of at least 1,000 people, right? So just imagine you as the parent, you're listening to this, you're watching this, right? So, I mean, as an adult entrepreneur, people would kill for 1,000 readers or 1,000 subscribers somewhere else. But kids, it's a daily occurrence. So just imagine if you were the parent, like Tim, of an ice skater, a soccer player, a kid model, a kid actor. They don't have to be some business brand, right? And you can say, shoot, my kid posts videos of herself ice skating. She's got 3,000 followers. Like, okay, hey kid, you want to turn that into something like we mentioned in call number one, where they can develop a product, a food item, a bag, something that they can use as part of that following to grow that following. So really think about the positioning and where you are as a parent now. We are not only talking to YouTubers or kid branders. We're talking to all parents with all kinds of kids. So I hope that this has inspired you. Remember to please book your free 30-minute call with either Tim or myself. You'll see those links in the comments below. And please utilize that. We can talk about wherever you are in your business and help move you forward. So with that being said, we've gone over it just a little bit. I appreciate you hanging out with us. Go into our Facebook groups. Tim is on the shelf on Facebook, and I
on the shelf now. Yep.
On the shelf now. And you can find me and my group for kid branding at Start Strong for Young Entrepreneurs. And I think they're just two phenomenal groups. It's like sitting on the couch with your best friends and everybody's fighting the good fight. So find us in there, and we'll sign off now. We hope you enjoyed this workshop. Any final words?
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye now.